everybody, and welcome back to the Mad Liberty Project, where up is down, left is right, and the rules don't matter because we're all mad here. I hope you guys are ready for this because we have a really interesting person come to talk to us today. Um, we have the media dubbed, quote unquote, high profile and often quoted boob boy, end quote, turned liberty, uh, like turned Liberty POW, turned reformed scarist, Tim Teagan. How are you doing, bro? It's nice to be
Uh,
out and everything.
that it is. Not doing as good as when they took me. Took my guns too. It's part of the reason. But I'm hanging in there and still keeping up the good fight.
Good, good, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I'm happy to have you here. And I hope that people come and get in here and enjoy us. I see that there are already some people showing up. Um, so, I always start these the same way, and I don't know if you remember how I used to start these, but I like to ask people, you know, how all of this started. Like, how did you get into Liberty? Can we start there? Like, where did you find Liberty at? Where were you?
See that was a long struggle for me. I came from a military family. My whole dream when I was a kid was to be a soldier. My older brother served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I tried to enlist twice. By the time I tried to enlist my second time, I already had 63 charges on my juvenile record. So they just told me no. They told me the Coast Guard wouldn't even take me. After that, I had to kind of find my own way. I got big into the anonymous group for a long time. Went to a couple of 5th of November protests, million mask marches, and
Yeah.
then in the spring of 2019, I saw a meme online. Had some guys with George Washington in the Hawaiian shirts and plate carriers crossing the Delaware. Next thing you know, I found my igloo of a home.
Dang it, just a meme. Um,
Just a minute.
so, did you, where did you, get your theory from? Is that where you started finding it? Or, did you already have some
No,
already built up? Or,
by the time I was 14, 15 or so, I started to see a lot of the corruption in our government. I started to feel like the government was not an entity to trust. A lot of my interactions with the police led me to believe these guys don't seem like the good guys that I was always told they were. My first
right.
arrest was at 14, and they gave me 12 charges, and I was arrested about every 6 months of my life for my teenage years. I was arrested, I believe, 9 times before I was 18 and given 63 charges and 23 convictions.
Jeez. Can I ask what for? I'm a,
Most of all were for marijuana possession, minor possession of alcohol, tobacco,
so
illegal
bullshit.
fireworks, running from the police. I did have two juvenile domestic violences with my father. That swords were involved. My father is not a good man.
Swords.
I'll say that.
Yikes.
He had a bad crack cocaine addiction problem and a bad alcoholic, and because of the things he would do, me and him butted heads a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. That does not sound like the beginning of a very good relationship. So, you saw this meme and you thought this is it, and what, do you just start interacting with people and just kind of fell into the flow of it? Or
Well,
was it hard?
but I found
Was
it
it
online. I started sharing the memes, getting involved in meme groups, and first time in my life, it felt like I finally found a community that believes what I believe in, stands for the same principles that I believe in, and wanted to make a change. And were aware to the fact that our country might be coming to a civil war and wanted to prepare for it. In a time where a lot of people heard me talking about these same issues and same things, they'd call me conspiracy theorist or called me crazy. I found an entire group of people that took it upon themselves to be the action that they thought they needed, the same way I wanted to
right?
be. And then in March, I believe it was my birthday, March 16th, was when they had the big gridlock protest here in Lansing, Michigan. And I didn't go
Yeah.
out in Hawaiian that day, but I still carried Boogaloo mentality. That's the first time I ever met other Boogs. And I remember just looking at them, jaw dropped, like these guys look like my heroes. As well as there was 3,000 plus people there. And then I heard a couple of people saying they were going to come out the very next day. So I bought a Hawaiian shirt, got my AR-15, parked at a park nearby, and walked to Lansing. And there was only 7 of us. None of them were Boogs. And then somebody took a picture, posted online. Some goons from other states that were still in a hotel saw the picture and like, that's one
Mhm.
of our guys. We're gonna go down there, back them up. And that's the first true brotherhood in action we had with each other. And since then, I was with the group full force.
I kind of remember a time period when like you couldn't go anywhere without like seeing some sort of trace of like boys around. Like it was a very interesting time. Uh, so like you mentioned the protests and stuff like that. Well, first off, like you mentioned the Civil War stuff, but like the Boot didn't want a civil war. They were different, right?
No, so we saw it as a possibility, and if it is a very likely possibility, there's definitely different ways to approach that. I know in here in Michigan, we actually wanted to prevent it, if at all possible. We started to
Yeah.
do unity coalitions. We tried to bring groups like Proud Boys and Antifa and Oath Keepers and Black Lives Matter together to at least try and get a kind of a peace deal, if you will, an armistice between them, saying, hey, stop attacking each other. All of your problems are coming from the government, not each other. Playing into the hand of just fighting each other is what the people in DC want from us. We got to be better.
H-
Um,
how did
but we
that
also
go?
knew
That
that,
sounds like a menagerie.
oh, yeah, well, one of our first big unity rallies that was supposed to be held in all 50 state capitals, the
Hmm.
CIA put out a memo saying Boogaloo Boys are planning to storm all 50 state capitals. So when
Oh
we
yeah,
got
that was
there,
J17th, right?
yep, we were greeted with National Guardsmen. We were greeted with about 50 MSP that came out from the building, goose stepping like something out of a Star Wars parade. Um, and that was the welcoming we got. Obviously, this scared away anyone that may have even wanted to engage in conversation with us or wanted to push for
Right.
that. But I mean,
Yeah.
there's plenty of times where I was in the back doors talking to certain high-profile members of Proud Boys, even, and certain members of the BLM organization, trying to keep the peace after we go to an event, an altercation happens because we came to the defense of somebody else and not them, and they want to start beef, if you will. And we tried,
Yeah.
at least me personally, we always tried to keep the peace and not make enemies out of these people. Even though ideologically wise, we may be opposites, it does
Right.
not mean I think it's just to start kicking down each other's doors, toting death threats, or trying to kick each other's ass in the streets.
And I remember a lot of different areas trying to do that kind of thing, and like it started to work for a while there, but then it seemed like the culture war got whipped up even harder, and like more often than not, if we did show up, we were having to like protect protesters from each other, instead of like trying to it like, did you guys notice that the lines shifted where you guys were? Was that hard for y'all to deal with?
I mean, because at first, most of the protests, the first probably 50 protests I was going to was anti-lockdown protests, and that obviously is going to bring more of your right-winged crowd. So there's
Mm-hmm.
plenty of times my first experiences with Proud Boys were shoulder to shoulder with them. Even though I didn't like a lot of
Yeah.
their slogans, I didn't like a lot of their ideology, we were allies in that confrontation we both found ourselves in.
Yeah,
Later
and
on, I started to attend.
the
I started,
anti-mandate stuff, right?
yep. Because even on, I believe it was April 30th, when Michigan stormed the state capitol building, I was the second
Mm-hmm.
guy in the building. It was
Yeah.
the Boogaloo Fire Team led the way in because one of our guys, we read the bylaws, realized, hey, we can bring our guns in here and they can't stop us. Yeah,
And it was
we're
legal.
going
Oh
inside.
dear.
And
Yeah,
the next thing you know,
we couldn't pull that off here. I don't think that would work out very well, but that's kind of cool. So what happened?
yeah. Well, that day was probably the closest we've ever had to a Lexington Green event.
Oh dear.
In all honesty. Yep, with 280 of us winning that building, there was maybe 17 to 20 MSP in that entire building and a small five-man SWAT team on the very top floor. And crowds of us pushing against the MSP. Um, but it started to get such high tensions that some lawmaker lady, she was a Republican leaning lady, I know that much. She came out and lied to everyone and said, if this vote passes, that means no lockdowns, trying to diffuse the situation. But as soon as that
Mm-hmm.
vote passed, all you could hear in that entire building was everyone's gun rack. Everyone chambered
Oh
around that
shit.
didn't already have one. It would have taken one negligent discharge in that building, and it would have gone down just like Lexington Green.
Well, I'm glad that that didn't actually happen. Jeez.
Yeah, we
I
came
mean,
that
like,
close.
so like that wasn't the only kind of protest you went to though. Like you started out with right protests, more right wing protests, but then like we ended up all out on the streets again, trying to keep protesters from hurting each other. Um,
Yep. I had
Later on.
three of the roughest days of protesting. I was doing it with Black Lives Matter, trying to do
Mm-hmm.
security. First two nights was in Detroit. The first night, I read the infill time as the exfil. So I got there at 6 p.m. when the rest of my men were leaving. I'm like, well, I'm already here. I'm going to stay. Might as well make sure that everything's going to go smooth. And it was smooth for most of the day. We did a big march around the city. Everything was
Mm-hmm.
peaceful until it wasn't. I was on my way back to the car when I started to
Until
get
it
a live
always
feed
goes,
from a few
huh?
blocks away. Yep, and I looked on a live feed and they started tear gassing the group at like 5 minutes after I left. So I run
Oh,
back.
jeez.
Yep, and I go into the middle of the no man's land between the riot police and the protesters with my hands in the air, away from my rifle and everything, saying, "What are you doing? These are your people. This is our city. Don't attack them like this. This is unprovoked." Um, and I stood there for a good while. And then as the tear gas got worse, the police started to introduce non-lethals. I started giving out a lot of medical aid, pulling men and women and even children from the riot lines of the police who were beating them, bringing them
Yeah.
to makeshift first aid stations. At the same time, though, I also had to stop multiple lootings. And the first one I stopped, they were trying to get into a 7-Eleven. A guy was throwing an electric scooter against the glass and was bouncing off. And I ran in front of him, and right where he was about to throw that scooter, I stood in front of him. I didn't raise my gun or anything. I put my hands in the air, pleaded with this man, "What are you doing? This is our city. Don't destroy it." And it was enough. I never had to raise my rifle at a single person, and I've done about 180 armed events. I raised my rifle
Wow.
at one vehicle at the low ready when they were rushing toward a crowd, and that was
Yeah.
enough to deter the vehicle.
I think a lot
Um,
of us actually had situations with cars during that time period. And, like, I know they like to say, the media likes to say that it was one side or the other, but no, everybody was out there trying to hit each other with cars. This crazy stuff.
Yeah, that was always the most lethal threat out of nearly all the protests I've been to was vehicles.
So,
But
I
even
have
the
a
first night,
couple. Even the first night, what?
the first night in Detroit, I was also the first armed responder to an active shooting.
Oh.
Shooter was in a white SUV, shot a young black kid, about 18 years old, if I remember correctly, through the left lung, causing a sucking chest wound.
Wow, I
Um,
didn't hear
well,
about that.
within 12 seconds, I was on site. The shooter saw me coming, sped off. Um, the riot police and medics were less than 60 yards away. Took them over 5 minutes to treat this man. And because of that, he bled out and died in front of everyone.
Of course. I'm sorry that you had to see that. That's pretty fucked up. Um, you know, I think that I I wanted to. I'm like, that really sucks. Oh man. Oh, fuck. The shit got really rough out there. It got hard. A lot of messed up stuff happened. And it's your story sounds like a lot of stories of boys trying to just stand in the middle of it and stop the insanity. Um, and I mean, I think at one point we kind of gave up on the fact that the government was going to stop beating people. But like, at the beginning it was kind of like that, and like as things started like to get to a head, and the J17th stuff after 2021, like what was that like? I have a question here, and like I want to hit back on that. Like, what was that like, just being a few people like staring down all of that shit? Like I know what it was like doing it in the state here, but what was it like for you guys? Because like there were so many people in so many places, pockets, sometimes only one, just standing out there against all of these. Like it was like an army everywhere we were for our peaceful unity rally. So like, what was it like when you guys were there? Like,
Well, I personally got a kick out of it. I won't lie. It was me and one of my guys, Hawk, who we both were the first guys there to kind of scope out everything. And when we first got there was about 30 or 40 news cameras, but that was it. No one else. It was empty except news crew, and we were outnumbered 15-1 between the two of us. So it was nonstop interview. Eventually, I'm just repeating the same line like 30 times. And then as I'm in the middle of an interview, I look to my left and I see all this MSP coming out. I look to the right, I see Humvees upon Humvees of National Guardsmen come out to set up. And I'm
right?
still just reading the interview. I'm kind of shaking my head like, so this is how they want to play it. I was actually on a Vice News interview walking away, and I stopped the interview mid-interview to go heckle some National Guardsmen. They weren't armed. See, we could see they had firearms, but no magazines. I mean, we looked at it as a joke. Plus, to be honest, a lot of groups like ours have friends in National Guardsmen. I mean, heck, I cannot tell you the amount of crates of MREs that have been donated to people like us. I even got a couple in my bug out bag.
Yeah,
National
and people
Guardsmen,
would
for the
be
most part, aren't going to
surprised.
be our enemy.
People would be surprised how many free folk are actually in the National Guard. It's crazy. We're everywhere though. Like you're gonna find us everywhere. We are literally everywhere. We're like sand. Like we're everywhere. Um, so like asking about that and everything. What during the time, I have some extra questions here we didn't quite hit on, and I don't want to like pass them up before we move on. So let me grab this real quick. So like honestly, like when so like what were your thoughts during all of this about, like what the press was saying about everybody? Like did you expect them to go to that fucking full extent? Like what did that feel like when they
Uh,
were
I, I was not shocked. I wasn't shocked in the slightest. They took everything we say out of context, and we already knew they were going to. It just got to the point where we're almost playing a game on, well, who gets more quote lines and who gets more screen
right?
time. Even though we
Yeah, I
know
mean like
that they're just going to use everything we say to demonize us, to paint this picture. I give, when we had CNN 16.6 follow around our group for an entire day, um,
oh
yeah,
no.
that was a fun one. If you haven't watched that, watch it. It was right after they arrested the Wolverine Watchman for the Whitmer kidnapping plot.
I
And
think
one
I
thing I'll say
actually
is,
saw that, yeah.
yeah, well, me and a couple of my good guys were part of the reason why half of their group converted to Boogaloo. They left their group
Well,
behind and joined our group. Me and Pete, who I was close with, he was the first guy to train me on how to break down and clean my firearm, how to do proper room clearing, things of that nature. We were actually looking into renting out a radio station in Lansing, broadcasting tower,
oh nice.
and so we were going to do
That
our
would have been kind
own.
of cool.
Yep, it would have been a AM channel, but we would have had our own talk show, talk about a lot of the issues that's going on and a lot of free folk desires. And
Did you? Oh, and you
I
what?
spoke on. Oh yeah, I spoke to CNN for about 15, 20 minutes about how good these guys were, and I don't think they did it. And at the very last thing of the segment, they hard name dropped me, saying, "It is believed that some of these men had connection with the Boogaloo. Timothy Teagan confirmed this." And jumps to me for about 20 seconds, saying, "Yeah, I know a lot of these men. They came to our ideology because it's the same ideology, and I will contest to the good nature and merit of some of these men." And
Yeah,
that was like
I
the
remember
only
seeing that.
segment that
Yeah.
they had.
Um. So like, yeah, they called us. They called everybody Nazis. They called them Antifa super soldiers funded by Soros. How did you feel when you saw that they were when they got serious about it though, and like the media started calling the movement like comparable to ISIS or Hamas? Like, did
When
that?
it got to
What
the
did that?
point where the right wing media was calling us commie sympathizers and the left wing media was calling us Nazis, I felt pretty proud because it means I'm doing something right. If I'm doing
Yeah, I mean,
something
like
that
they were
makes
coming
both
from both
sides of the
sides.
aisle want to target at me, it means we're walking the right path.
Yeah, I I'm not gonna lie, that shit made me cuss a little bit. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. Um, but I mean, like, the truth is, like, we would end up at all of these different protests too, so it made it hard for people to know what side we were on and why we were out there. What, like, was that hard? Did you ever have problems with that? Because, like, we would be out there picking, like, picking our single issues to push and try and, like, speak liberty to people while they were out there and everything like that. Did you ever have like problems being around so many, statists while you were out there?
Yeah, I've been attacked a few times. Sucker punched in the back of the head, cussed out to my face. At the same time, they're some of the same people I was standing with a week before.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
and it's just how high tensions can get, especially when you start to lose your sense of rationality. And it's because a lot of these people, if you look what they bring to these events, they'll bring shields, they'll bring clubs. They're looking for
Yeah.
violence. They actively want a fight because they want to change something. They have a lot of aggression, but the only people that they can reach is other civilians, other citizens.
Right.
And because of that, they think that that's the people they need to attack. If you look at pictures of us, we always come armed to the teeth. Why? Because we're not looking for a fist fight. And
No, we
no one
don't
wants to
want to
pick a
fight at
fight
all,
with a bunch of
really.
guys with a bunch of guns. It's the best way to keep
Yeah.
peace. If you want,
It's a
if you
great
want,
deterrence.
yeah, if you want peace, you have to prepare for war. And every time we went out there, when we bring enough armed men, we get left alone. And we
Yeah.
do that so we get left alone, and so other people will leave each other alone.
Yeah. Well, and the joking nature of the whole movement kind of made that a lot easier for us, I think. There's a leftover question about your time in the movement here, asking, like, what is, to you, why was everything so much of a joke? Did, what could you explain to people what that meant to you, at least? Because I mean, like, this is very subjective from person to person, but why was everything such a joke? This is so dead serious.
It's a way to beat despair. If you can't laugh at the misery you find yourself in, all you have left is to suffer. So instead of wallowing in it, we found a way to at least let it enrich our life a little bit. And because of
Yeah.
that, we took everything with a degree of humor because it was the only way to take it without our losing our own mental psyche. And if had we have dwelled on every single issue with such an epitome of seriousness and concern and despair, I don't even want to know what our group could have turned out like.
Oh, yeah,
It's
like the
what turns
burnout
people
could
into
have made us
legitimate
all a bunch of
extremists.
angry nihilists or something.
It would have. And our goal was never to be black pilled. It was to try and find a path towards freedom, and no matter how bad it gets, always keep true to ourselves and keep our humanity.
Yeah. I try to take at least a couple of white pills down with every black pill I get just to freaking keep them going because like that's really all we've got to fight the burnout, you know. um I mean, we've got a lot of things stacked against us, but that burnout is really hard, and I think that we all kind of saw that hitting people, you know. And to be fair, I think that, you know, you getting hit was probably one of the things that really caused some serious morale and stuff. Like, dude, everybody loves you. Like, you don't hurt people. Um, you know, like, you've got a history of being wild and rowdy, but you're not a bad person. And it was just so crazy to see them go after somebody like you. Um, what was that like for you? Like, how did this happen?
Well, at first, it started with an altercation with my father. He was drunk, stole my brother's van, flipped it 7 times on the highway, repaired it just enough to drive home after a crack cocaine bender for a couple of days, and didn't tell us for a couple of days until I went out there and found it. So I knew if I stayed around him because I was taking care of him. He doesn't have a license. He has 14 DUIs. Um, that I separated myself because I knew if I stayed, I would have gotten to another fight. I tried everything to not fight that man. Eventually, I got too drunk celebrating a friend's birthday with my brother at the property, and things escalated. It was a bad fight. I even got hit in the head with a meat cleaver, apparently.
Jesus.
I was thrown down the stairs. I took a bad beating. My dad also took a bad beating from me. I won't lie there. And was it the right decision? No. I've always tried to avoid violence. My father is the only man I've ever had severe physical altercations with. And also at the time, he was over 100 pounds more than me. When I got into a fight right before I was arrested, I was 135 pounds. I was lean, but I was skinny.
Yeah.
And it was a bad fight. And it got to the point where I felt so threatened, my adrenaline kicked in. I fought tooth and nail, literally. Apparently, I bit him on his forehead during the scuffle after I got hit in the head with a meat cleaver.
Right.
But while I was in the drunk tank, because the police arrested me, the FBI got an alert, and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Teagan's in jail. Let's go see if we can poke and prod this situation at
Opportunistic
all."
pieces of shit.
Yep. And my drunken father just let them in the house, no warrant, into my old room I already moved out of. And they saw a bong with 4 rounds of ammunition, saw a Narcan kit near my medical supplies, thinking, oh, this guy has to be doing hard drugs. When they did so that was enough to start the federal investigation. I got out of jail. I received no medical attention, so I went straight to a hospital. And the FBI were waiting in the lobby by the time I got out of the hospital. When I was in the hospital, that's when they did the raid on my dad's house. They found a bunch of old broken bongs because I had a pipe graveyard there, and they found some empty bags of weed. But then they took my cell phone. I got out, and they were waiting for me. They told me I can either A, give them my cell phone, or B, they can detain me and take my cell phone. And they also told me if I give them my cell phone, I can take down any information I need. I'm like, I took that option, and I used that to send out a message to my local men. Tell them what's happening, what's about to happen. Do not overreact. Do not escalate this at all. Let me handle my own situation. I did not want this to go bad. I did not want anyone to seek vengeance on my behalf or anything like that.
Do you think that in a way that they might have been hoping that that would have happened?
I do. In all honesty, I think they were preparing for it. They wanted to have this massive story. It was a week before midterm elections. All the newspaper headlines was about voter fraud and voter fears. And then they raided the hotel room I was staying at. And I was staying out with one of my friends, and they found one unopened prepackaged medicinal eighth of marijuana. That's the only marijuana in my case.
That is such bullshit. Like, holy crap.
Yep. And that was enough for the conviction. So 2 days later, they wanted to make an arrest. They followed my little brother that came to meet me at a restaurant, a local restaurant called Zach's in Plymouth, and they stuffed the entire parking lot with undercover agents.
Oh,
By the
jeez.
time I got done eating, I left to have a cigarette. I was on the phone with one of my guys. Plymouth Township cruiser pulls up with lights on. 16 undercover agents, all with guns drawn on me and my brother, come out. And my brother didn't know who they were at first because all the agents were plainclothes. And my brother was
Oh,
armed. He put his hand on his SIG. They nearly shot him. I told him, Chris, just
that's
cooperate.
a
It's the feds.
that's a dangerous
They nearly
game,
shot my
though.
little brother right in front of me.
I'm glad you were able to like at least keep that from happening.
And it got very bad. But at the same time, when they took me into the squad car, I still remember I was smiling the whole ride.
You cheeky shit.
And well, it's because they raided me at a public restaurant, so I knew that they weren't going to
They
try
weren't
and
gonna
take a
take
hit on me. That they were going to take me alive. So that's part of the reason I was happy. And I still remember they asked me in the police cruiser, "So, Mr. Teagan, how did you get involved with all this?" And I looked at him grinning. It just started with a meme. Probably still one of my favorite lines I ever said to an FBI agent.
That's
But
I mean, that's pretty fucking epic, though.
I'm not
It
going to lie.
started with a meme. Someone should turn that into a T-shirt. I'm challenging someone to turn that into a T-shirt, please.
It started to get really. But this is where things started to get really sketchy, is when they started to question me.
Mhm.
They let me sit in the cell for a night, and they came to question me the next day.
Right.
The first question was, are the militias planning to come to the polls in the midterm elections? I told them, no. Are the militias planning any extremist activity around the midterm elections? No. And then they started asking me about Ukraine. They asked me, and these are the
Why
exact questions.
Ukraine?
What are my listen? So they asked me, what are my thoughts on Ukraine and the Ukrainian war? Like, I don't have an opinion either way. I do not support either side in that conflict. They asked me, why did I not go to fight in Ukraine? I looked at them like, for the same reason I just stated. I do not support the conflict. Would I ever support Ukraine? Then they asked me, what would it take to get me to Ukraine?
What the
As I'm
fuck?
sitting in,
What is this questioning? That's so strange.
I know, as I'm sitting in federal handcuffs, you know, what would it take me to get to Ukraine? Or are you want? I truly felt they were wanting me to say, if you drop these charges, I'll go to Ukraine. Or they might have even been trying to get me to recruit people to go to Ukraine. When they arrested me, they did so under the idea that I was an extremely high-ranking member of the Boogaloo. They thought I was a general of the Boogaloo.
That's not how that works.
I know, I'm
You'd
aware.
think eventually they'd figure that stuff out, but they just never do.
I even found articles about me before my arrest from West Point Academy Counterterrorism Intelligence, writing articles about me saying I appear to be much more influential in the Boogaloo than what has appeared.
Oh my god.
They truly thought I was some kind of general or commander of the Boogaloo and that I could command men. And that's what led them to their next question. How many men do I have in Ukraine?
Oh my god. That's so weird.
Yep, so apparently they think I've been sending or issuing commands to men to go to fight in Ukraine.
General Teagan. I'm sorry, that's so
I wish I
weird.
could be making this up, but
No, and they do some weird ass shit. I'm not at all surprised they were asking some stuff like that. I mean, either that or they thought maybe like it was some sort of like who knows? They were probably concerned about international incidents too, perhaps.
well, this
I
is also
noticed
why
that even though they asked you about the election and you told them no, the media told everybody that you were indubitably involved with a plot for the election day.
yep.
I remember that.
And
Nobody mentioned anything about the Ukraine stuff though. This is all new. Please keep,
oh yeah,
please keep explaining the weird Ukraine
they,
thing.
they kept going into this, and I'm truly in the belief that they were trying to get me to work for them to recruit people to go to Ukraine or go to Ukraine under the CIA's behalf, because Department of Homeland Security was on my case, the ATF was on my case, the FBI Counterterrorism Task Force was on my case, but the CIA was on my case too. CIA is not supposed to operate here, but because they considered me an international threat, they were able to hop on my case.
International.
So I had the
Have you
entire
been
alphabet
out of the
soup,
country
every letter
before
in the
even?
can. No, I'm banned in both of our neighboring countries. I'm on a no-fly list. I can't even go on a plane.
That's not the first time I've heard that. That seems to be a reoccurring issue.
And
So,
but
like,
then the questions kept escalating in weird directions. Then they started asking me about what are my feelings on the police. And did I ever think about joining the police force?
what?
And this I did. Yeah, the FBI asked me this, and I did answer this one and take a swipe at them. I'm like, when I was young, I almost thought about becoming a sheriff because they're in the Constitution. Not in all reality, but I wanted to take a little jab at them while I could.
Yeah. I mean, might as well play around with it. What else can you do?
But then they're asking me again, what are my thoughts on the FBI? Did I ever consider becoming a federal agent?
Whoa.
These are not questions at all, obviously, related to my case. They are questions nowhere that it makes sense to even be asking me. But it just continued to go weird. Then they started asking me about prison, the guy in Ohio who was arrested the same day as me. And the first thing that they show me is an article written about him saying he's been arrested for something about illegal firearms and cocaine. They'll hold it in front of my face for about 20 seconds and take it away. Yep.
Yeah.
But they asked me, do I know this guy? And I told them I don't remember because I just had severe head damage. When I was in the hospital, it was to get a CAT scan because I suffered a severe concussion that could have even been a brain hemorrhage.
I mean, honestly, I don't remember. It's a pretty good answer anyways.
That was my answer for most everything. And in truth, that was mostly my honest answer. I had suffered minor memory loss by the time they came to ask me. Even in the interview, it says I appeared to be intoxicated when it was the first time being sober in about 13 years.
Yeah.
But I had suffered legitimate brain damage. So, yes, in all honesty, and not just saying this to not contradict my FBI statement, I couldn't remember a whole lot of things. But
no, that's fair.
They were trying to link me to his case. It appeared that they were trying to coerce me into saying for a conspiracy to harm officers plot that they were trying to tie both me and him into over some very vague 2-message text, and all the text said was, are you okay, man? Are you in trouble? Do I got to come down there? I don't give a fuck if I'm coming down heavy or if we just got to get some drinks. Are you okay? And he said, oh, he's okay. And apparently that's them pulling that up to try and get us into conspiracy to harm officers. Because they're under the assumption, well, obviously he's talking about coming down heavy to fight cops. No, that's not what that was at all. But they were trying very hard to link me in with him, it appears. And my lawyer kept a close eye out on his case because I asked him to, too. And my lawyer reported back to me that there was a heavy multitude of undercover agents, more than he's ever personally seen on his case. There was a multitude of undercover agents on my case. Apparently, I have it in my documents. I have done cocaine with undercover federal agents before, so put that on the Fed list bingo card.
Somebody needs to make that a side quest.
But things got very odd during the questioning. And they only asked me one question about marijuana the entire time. It was the very last question. Like, so, Mr. Teagan, when's the last time you've ever smoked weed? I'm like, I don't remember. Was it any time within the past year? I don't remember. Um, and that they left that at that. They didn't poke or prod that at all. They asked me 4 times as many questions about Ukraine than they did about my actual charge. And then they
Wow.
asked me where my base of operations was.
Uh,
I was so close to telling them we're building a giant igloo in northern Nova Scotia, Canada. Go find it. So
that
close.
probably would. They probably wouldn't have responded real well to that, but that would have been funny.
So close. They already wasted about $1 million in tax dollars on me. What's a million more,
They have
right?
been consistently wasting just millions of dollars in tax money on people who have like no intention on hurting people. They're just absolutely ridiculous with this stuff. And that
Yep.
line of questioning they gave you and everything, I mean, it just plays into their ridiculous nature. Like, they can't possibly believe this shit. I mean, like, I can't believe that they believe this. I just think they have some sort of ulterior motive. They have to. There's no way they
Oh, they
believe this
did.
kind of crap.
Uh, for one, they wanted to create a story right around the election for fear and propaganda. They got that out of me because that's nothing I can control. That's between them and the media.
Right.
Secondly, I truly believe that they thought when they arrested me with all these federal agents and guns and everything, I was going to go to jail in cuffs, scared and whining and crying, and be begging and pleading. They didn't get any of that. You know, they were sitting in front of a smiling man with confidence out of nowhere that they didn't know how to deal with.
Well, to be fair,
They
they had
thought they
hit people before and snapped them like twigs by doing that sort of thing. Um, I guess you were made of sterner stuff.
I truly think that they were trying to flip me for some other met, um, for some other cause, whether that would be to
Hmm.
give them information, whether that would be to work for them to some degree. They thought that they could make a pawn out of me. And when they didn't, and they knew that they had a weak case, they tried to double down on me.
Right.
They first they offered me a plea deal of 18 months. It's not bad. It's at the maximum of my guidelines because feds do a point system, and my guidelines were so low.
Hmm.
Um, but I told them, yeah, I'm not taking that. I was going to file for a Bruin motion and try and fight this. Then, when they heard that, I get some new paperwork from them, and they didn't threaten my family in words, but it did seem they did so in black and white because in the black and white paperwork, they noted that my dad was a felon in the house with an open firearm. They said my brother had given false information to the FBI agents because they got him in a tongue tie twister, and my little brother's a little special needs. Then they noted that my friend in the hotel, who has a CPL, that's where they found the marijuana, so it could have also potentially have been his. So I took it as if I try to fight this, there's a good chance that they're coming after my family and friends. And then I also
Yeah.
talked to my lawyer about what's the actual chance of winning. He told me it doesn't look good because the judge has it out for me, the media has it out for me, and had I have lost the Bruin motion in the Sixth Circuit, Federal Circuit, it would have set a new precedent, and it would have allowed them to continually convict marijuana users who own guns, which in Michigan, that's about 300,000 people in the state at least. So instead of taking up that battle and probably losing, um, I chose to take the second plea deal, which was for 12 months, and pass that fight on to the unfortunate next guy because I probably was in the worst position to fight that case.
Hmm. Oh man. So like, you know, how I guess like, you weren't a stranger to the system or anything like that, but like going in this time was kind of different. You were so like high profile. Was it difficult going through it again?
Well, this was my first time locked up, and I was treated like a celebrity. I'm not going to lie,
Oh.
my stay was quite comfortable. As soon as
Really?
I got to the county jail, because they transferred me to St. Clair County Jail for the first 5.5 months,
Hmm.
I was going to go change into my oranges out of my Hawaiian shirt for my mugshot. And while I'm in there, I come out and all the inmates are looking at me like, "Dude, what did you do?" Because
Oh no.
they overheard the guards saying to each other, "Is Teagan here?" And they're like, "Yeah, we got to call Department of Homeland Security right now. They need to know he's here." They had to let the
Oh,
Department of Homeland Security know every time I got to a facility, left a facility, when and where I was
wow.
in transit. It got to the point where the rumor about me even spread throughout the guards, and the guards just heard I was a high-profile militia member, and even the guards gave me respect for that.
Huh.
Um, the inmates, it was funny. The inmates eventually gave me the call sign "Bomb Threat."
Oh
That was my new
no.
nickname in there because I
Shit.
taught all the inmates how to make little chemical muskets and how to make
Jeez.
how, just to make some homemade TNT in case you have to blow a rock off your property. Um,
Oh yeah.
so I was well
Gardening
liked,
is
well respected.
really intense.
It can be. I mean, that used to be legal in Michigan. You have a big boulder you need to get off your backyard, you blow it up with some homemade
Blow it
dynamite.
up with some stuff, yeah.
Um,
So like,
so
so it wasn't as hard to like, so like you did you have a hard time keeping your spirits up at all, or was it just like,
there was moments. I'm not gonna lie there. I had a lawyer for my first lawyer lasted on my case for less than 48 hours. He looked at my
wow,
case, looked at my family, his hands were shaking, and he told my family these exact words. They're going to do to him what they did to Al Capone. His exact words.
well, I mean, at
They
least they
thought,
didn't fucking do that.
yeah, because I was looking at two charges of 15 years maximum and one charge of 10 years maximum. My whole family thought I was going to go away for at least 10 years. It got to the point where I was expecting at least a 10-year sentence. Um, Things got hard a lot of the times. I was worried that while I was away, people I know and love might get hurt because I couldn't be there. Um, I beat myself down for having that fight with my father that allowed the feds to even get their foot in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had to do a lot of my own emotional and mental growth. And I did. There wasn't a single day wasted in there. And eventually, even in the middle of a federal jail cell, I was still able to find peace. My spirit never was broken. It was battered a little bit, but it came out stronger. And I came out of jail the very first day ready to do everything I can to promote my beliefs, to teach others what I know, and to still try and make a difference. I refuse to let my legacy be that of being a victim by the federal agents. My legacy will still always be what I've stood up for, what I've done, and what I'm still willing to continue to do to help others.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Like, I worried about you, man. I think a lot of people worried about you, and to hear that like you came out feeling better is good to hear. But like, speaking of coming out, like, what was that like? I hear all sorts of horrible stories about trying to get out and get resettled afterwards. So like, what was it like getting out of there? Um, and I
It
mean, like, I guess
was,
you'd been. Did you get a lot of news? Were you cut off when you came out and stuff, or?
well, it was a lot of ups and downs. I had to accept the fact that I cannot legally own guns, and if I ever am going to be able to legally get my gun rights back, at this point, it'll only be done through a presidential pardon, so that's extremely unlikely. Am I still going to try and fight for it? Yes. Am I still going to try and make a bunch of noise to get it? Yes. But it's unlikely. I had to deal with the fact that my family now, they blamed the Boogaloo for a long time for my incarceration. But at the same time, there was a silver lining because now none of them trust the government. They
Yeah.
actively hate our federal government. I hate to say it, but me being arrested in the way I did radicalized a lot of people that were close to me.
I imagine
And
it
some
did.
for the good, some for the bad. When they raided my father's house, They came with the full SWAT team. They came with the sheriff department, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security. I believe there was even a CIA agent, and they also came with a bomb squad. They had to. They thought my home was going to be booby trapped. They were actively afraid to go into my empty home. I was a little proud of that. And then my brother also told me that the FBI agents were even laughing at my patches and memes. So that's also a
Huh.
win. That should be a side quest, in my opinion. But
Lots of
it,
side quests.
it eventually did batter me to the point where I hit a bit of a depression. Um, it felt like I was in a hopeless situation because by the time I got out, much of my old crew, much of the Boogaloo had already disintegrated locally.
Yeah.
People got with other groups. While I was away, infighting got worse. People were afraid. And to see what happened to the movement that I worked so hard for, sacrificed so much for, who I lost friends in, that brought me to a low spot for a while.
Yeah.
And
You and
though
me both.
I can still see that there are plenty of people that still hold true to the ideology, and that though people have spread off in their own way, they carry the fight in their own way. And once I started to
Yeah.
realize and find that out, it boosted my spirits again.
That
And
whole
since then,
the real boog were the friends we made along the way is not entirely just a joke.
that it is. I mean, they were brothers, and I lost good people. We lost Duncan Lemp.
We
We
all
lost
lost
Jared
good people.
Foster. We lost Michael Newman. And Michael Newman, I don't know if you remember him. His call sign was "Any hole will do." God, I fucking
Yeah,
love
I
that guy.
definitely knew. Yeah. Uh, that shit
And
fucking hit me really hard. That shit hit me really hard. And I still have a hard time dealing with it. I think that after a little while it just was too much, and like these days, um, there's something going on amongst the libertarians and the market anarchists and stuff, and the Libertarian Party, and I've seen it in the remnants of like what floats around as the Boog. Um, like there's a lot of people trying to pick up the flag and pretend that they're pulling this shit, and there's a lot of people out there trying to like play ANCAP, but they're like pulling statist rhetoric and even like anti-queer and fascist rhetoric. How did how did that make you feel when you came out? Did you see that stuff when you first came out, or did it take a while for you to notice? Or
it
um,
was not in my immediate circles online because I had to build new.
mm-hmm.
But I started to, the further I grew and further I could kind of see the outskirts, I started to see it some. And it was concerning. And then I even found out some people who even I was close with joined some alt-right groups, like actual pretty far-right groups.
Yeah, yeah, me
And
too.
I, I started questioning, how did this all happen in the course of the less than a year I was away?
Propaganda is
And
a
it was,
powerful drug, my friend.
it is. And, I felt like part of the reason for this is when our group got so large and then fell due to a myriad of things, it created a vacuum. And people started to float towards anyone who would accept them. And
Yeah,
didn't matter if they needed to change their ideologies if they felt like they'd have a community. Because we built one, and it was a great community. It was a brotherhood. We had each other's backs. There wasn't a single boy that wasn't willing to die for another boy if this time called
yes.
for it. And
Yeah, myself included. And
we
man,
ended
there's
up,
so many people who were with us back in the old days that I don't even know if I could be safe with anymore though.
and you know,
You're not one of those people. I think I'd probably be safe with you, bro. I don't think that way about you. But like, yeah, it's been rough for those of us who didn't have to come out and see it as a surprise either, because it was like a slow but inevitable just force.
Well,
Um,
one thing I've learned, and this has eaten away so many groups, not just our own, it's when you have all this animosity towards wrongs that have been done towards you, done towards your community, and done towards the things that you believe in. You want to reach out and lash out at something. And when
yeah,
nothing is put in front of you, you inevitably lash out at those close to you. And you combine that in with federal agents undercover provoking people, stirring the pot, kicking the flames and embers, we end up with what we had. And I hope that everyone who was in groups like ours, who saw these infights, who saw the provocation from our own government, can realize the equation that was at play to deter us. And we can learn
yeah,
from it and put up protective measures against it. We are going to inevitably align ourselves with people who do not think exactly like us because everyone is an individual. We
yes,
strive toward the goal of freedom and toward the goal of liberty because it is the only just cause for any human being to live under. And in doing so, you are going to be shoulder to shoulder with people that are going to have different sexualities, who are going to have different faiths and religion, who are going to
mm-hmm.
have different merits and principles, but who deserve to flourish under the guise of freedom.
Yes,
And the second you lose track of that is the second that the enemy, which is the enemy of freedom, is tyranny and authority, is the second that they start to gain more power over you, and the second that you start to lose. And in going
it's true.
forward, whatever comes next, the second we lose track of that is when we start to go down the same path we just went down. We have to
Mm-hmm.
remember that. We have to work together.
That's That is so freaking true. I love to hear that from you. You've always got something good to say on, like something positive, something uplifting to say. That is something that I do remember about you. And, you know, you've always been like a peace bringer when you're around for the most part, from what I've been able to see. Um, and talking about how like you're gonna go forward and try to find ways to deal with like liberty and do liberty where they can't kneecap you, at least for now. um so like you're doing libertarian stuff now.
Yep, I'm technically a minor politician. I can say that. Um, I'm elected to the Wayne County Central Committee. I'm an at large for the Libertarian Party.
Well, yeah, you've already
It
had
is
drama as an LP person, like right out the gate.
Yes, I came in and the LP is, I won't lie, it's a disaster. The same thing
Oh
that happened
god,
to
yeah.
us is happening to them. They're
Yes,
at each
harder.
other's throats for trivial differences, and because of that, it forced an ideology of tribalism. And now they have the same inner duopoly that we have with between Democrats and Republicans. It's
Yeah, and they
people that,
fatten themselves with statism too.
mhm. And in doing so, it is a severe disrespect to the principles of the party. But at the same time, I'm trying my best to bridge the gaps. Both sides of this aisle in the Libertarian Party,
Mm-hmm.
I find respect in, for me personally, because of the things I've done and the things I've been through. No one can throw shade on me. And because of that, I've been using my experiences as a way to try and bridge these gaps, to try to end the hate and get people talking. At the last state convention, I stood up because two men were about to have a fist fight, and now me and a couple others had to intervene. It's at the
Yeah.
point where they're succumbing to physical violence.
Well, yeah, I've had like people that I used to work with in the LP have like literally just because I'm trans, I'm now a groomer and they have threatened to kill me. Like I've had people from all over and Capistan from all this stuff threaten to literally kill me that I have been helping, and I never thought that I'd see that day. I never thought we would get to that. Um, but there's still a lot of really cool people out there, and like I'm glad that you seem to be meeting some of them. Like And honestly, if you need help meeting some really cool libertarians, I still know some. I'll hook you up. But like, so how's stuff going? And like, how did you feel, by the way, going to the, like I know we kind of like got you on a different show to talk about this before, but I mean, like, how did it feel going into the, the LNC and having all this chaos everywhere and them trying to
It,
stop the delegates and all this crazy junk?
it was truly golden dumpster fire. It's the best way I can describe that entire event.
Dumpster fire
Um,
floating down the river.
yep, and to be part of a state that they were trying to disenfranchise our votes. And this is my first time being a delegate at all in the Libertarian Party. I had driven all the way to DC on a car that apparently had a blown head gasket. Spent all the last of my funding that I had to my name to go to this event for them to try and say we can't even vote. We're not even supposed to be here. It was disconcerting. Did I let it deter me from doing my best to communicate with people? No. Did it deter me from doing my best to still represent the principles of liberty and freedom? No. Do I know that was I the exact individual target? No. There was things going on
No.
before I got out of jail. I understand
Right.
that. And even the person who was trying to push for this, I am still actively trying to be friendly towards and still actively trying to bridge the gap between him and the people across the aisle from him.
Well, how
If for a
did you
group,
know that Trump was going to be there? Speaking of which, or did that come as a
I knew a
surprise?
couple of days beforehand. In all honesty, at first, I was I was wanting to see him, mostly because I wanted to make a sign that says "Pardon me, jackass." Um, yep. Not gonna lie, but by the time, so he was scheduled to speak at 8. I went to use the bathroom at 4, and there was a whole line of Trump
Mm,
supporters going out the door. The Secret Service didn't know that we were supposed to have assigned seating at the very front because he came to speak to libertarians. They didn't know that, and they let the Trump supporters in early before we even got done with business, and they just flooded the entire area.
mm-hmm.
So I ended up skipping it because, for one, I did not come. I'm not going to go see Trump at a Trump rally. I'll see him if he comes to
Right.
speak to libertarians. Um, I don't want to see Trump at a Trump rally.
Right.
I felt there was going to be altercations. You get that many libertarians in the room, also trying to fight for seats between
Right.
them and a large amount of evangelical Trump supporters. I knew there was going to be altercations, and I could not risk going back to prison. If I get a violation, I'll go back for about 18 months in federal prison. I'll go straight to prison.
Right.
It's not.
And you were right because there was altercations and stuff like what
And
happened
it
with
hurt.
Star Child and everything.
It did. And I won't lie, it hurt me not being able to be in a position to be able to be there. Had I been in that room, I know myself. I would have been right there at the scene, doing my best to de-escalate, but also make sure that no one is getting stomped on, no one is getting attacked, whether that's by security guards or not. In fact, outside of the event, there was a Trump guy so blacked out drunk he's falling into signs. Eventually the security guards started harassing him, so I walked over, uh, got the security guards away from him, and I babysat him until I could get him into a taxi, pretty much
You're
carrying that
kinder
guy
man
out.
than me.
Yeah.
Kinder man than
um,
me.
yeah, because I couldn't tell who he was with, and I was asking him, like, so did you come here for the convention or did you come here to see Trump? And he started going, Trump 2024. I'm like, okay,
Oh god.
let's get you
Oh
home.
god. Mhm. Oh
But
man. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna
that
lie. When I was checking in on things and trying to keep up with it, and I saw that the whole Star Child thing was happening, I started having a mild panic attack because I was afraid I was gonna see like a freaking like Tim shaped blur just come out of nowhere. And when I didn't, I was like kind of confused. And then I found out that you weren't even, like you weren't actually like in the room. And I'm like, oh, thank the gods. I mean, I'm sad that it happened and I'm angry that it happened, but I'm really glad you were not in the room.
Yeah,
Because a lot
it
of us
was
can't
unjust the
stand for
way he was
violence.
treated.
I couldn't understand why the other libertarians just stood there. Um, that was the saddest shit I've ever fucking seen.
Yeah, it
Um,
does appear that most of the people in the high-ranking LP, uh, they're close to a politician like mindset, right? They want to
yeah,
enact action with policy. Most of them are not activists. Most of them aren't able or willing to, or mentally have the capacity to go out in the streets and stand for what they want to believe in. And I can understand that. What I've done is not for everyone.
yeah,
They are great at passing policy. Dealing with the legal mumbo jumbo, I'm now trying to learn.
yeah.
But
But it's damn near impossible to get most of them in the grass.
it is. So did I felt disappointed? I won't lie, but I can also see the logical reasons for it. It's the best way I can describe it.
Um, so like, out of curiosity, if the Libertarian Party continues to go the way that it has been and it doesn't recover itself, um, and they begin to actually be full on, like statists, like there are a lot of libertarian representatives out there speaking full on fascism. Um, like where's the line at? Like, what would make you back away from the Libertarian Party? How bad does it have to get? Out of
Well,
curiosity, I learned how bad it had to get for me, but like, where is that line for you?
I'm still trying to figure out how bad it truly is right now. How many people
Yeah,
of like minded individuals there are in the party. And if possible, if we cannot fix this, and I'm going to try, there's a lot of people with me who are going to try. And if we fail, there will more than likely be a division, more than likely into a new party. What that will take, what that will look like, I'm not exactly sure. It's going to hold a lot of the same principles I hold, I'd imagine. Um,
would you ever consider joining something like the Pirate Party, like where Vermin's running for the Pirate Party this year?
I haven't actually heard of them, so that actually kind of warmed my
Oh,
heart hearing Furman's running for a pirate party. I'm not
yeah,
gonna
he's
lie.
running with the Pirates
Um,
this year. You should check them out, see if that's something that might be of interest to you. I've been eyeballing it, but man, I'm real gun shy about parties now. I've been just kind of
I can't blame
disappointed
you.
too much. I've been
You know,
disappointed too
a
much.
lot of boogs in Michigan and we're in the LP, and now I appear to be the only one. That all happened in the course of the past 2 years. I know a lot of guys that were
Well,
close
it
to me
seems like,
jumped out of the LP when it appeared that Mises got big. And what I
yeah,
can tell about Mises is a lot of their followers don't have a bad head on their shoulders. A lot of their leaders appear to be pushing
their
things that,
representative is atrocious.
yeah, it appears that their problem is their leadership. But because Mises was good at recruiting people and they brought people into the fold, and that's their first introduction to the LP, they stick to the people they know.
Well, what do you think
The
about
only
all
way
these, about the fight with Trump and stuff? Because it seems like a lot of people on that end are trying to push for Trump.
I think that they want to get into the spotlight, even if they have to betray the principles. They want
Yeah,
to see the party succeed, whether or not the principles succeed, because many of them have found themselves in positions of power, and I fear that they've fallen to the greed of ego, where they want power no matter what. We've seen this in all types of people before.
yeah.
Um,
Even free folk are not immune to the lure.
Indeed. And because of that, this is what happens when the wrong people get in power.
Mm-hmm.
It will never
Exactly.
change. It's an age old story as long as mankind has been around. When certain people get into power, they'll betray everything that they hold dear to their morality to get more power. And not everyone is like that, but there are those people. And when those people get into power, it plays out that way every time. And Trump promised libertarian cabinet members, he promised a lot of appealing promises to a political party, sure. But he doesn't stand for our principles.
Right.
He already has taken many swipes at the Second Amendment, at the First Amendment. He does not appear to be a representative of the libertarian ideology. And because a lot of people do believe Trump is going to win this election, they want to piggyback on it.
Yeah.
I unfortunately think that if everyone was dead set certain that Kamala Harris, for example, is going to win with the same way many people think Trump's going to win right now, we'd see those same corrupt people in power try to piggyback on her.
I don't
It's
know if
just
we
the
would
allure
see
of
that
power.
from its state at this exact moment. Like, they do not seem like they would jump that direction. They seem more likely to jump straight off into the alt right to me. I don't want to fucking
Perhaps.
be an asshole, but like, most of them, most of the ones that are falling off the table, they're like literally racist and anti queer and a bunch of shit that's none of their goddamn business, you know? Um, I don't know. I'm worried about the future of Ancapistan. But we all can only do what we can do to keep everybody from falling off the dang table. Like, I hope that you're out there trying to pull people back. I'm out there trying to pull people back. The unity movement has been, like giving places for people to go that are not like full of awful. Um, but like, do you think that you might be in the future doing any other kinds of activism? Like, like, are you going to get back into mutual aid? I know the press said that you were planning on quitting the Boogaloo to start your own militia, but I don't know if that's true. Are you going to do a gardening militia?
I cannot say for certain what my future is going to entail. I can say I'm going to do my best to stand up whenever the time is necessary to stand up, take action whenever the time is necessary to take action, and in the meantime, teach as many people about everything I've learned, everything I've come across, both in my experiences in the legal system, in my experiences with the militia, in my experiences with everything I've learned from medical aid to prepper and survival.
Mm.
If the need ever arises for me to protest in the streets again to keep people safe or to stand up for a cause I believe in, I'll be there. Um, as far as militias go, I will more than likely try and give aid to any like-minded militias that will ever need my help, whether I have to search for them or they reach out to me.
Yeah.
I can say on video I'm not going to be breaking any laws. I do know the hard line of where the law begins and where it stops, and I will always walk that fine line. If I'm within my right, I'm going to do something. And if it can help people, I'm damn well going to do something. That will never change about me. It's just part of the way I'm
Yeah.
built. It's part of the way I exist, and I cannot live in any other way.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I don't know what else I would do. Like I don't know what else I would do. I can't imagine what it would be like trying to fight for liberty with like one or both hands tied behind my back the way they hit us when they do hit us.
Well, like the old saying goes, for every one fighter, there's 12 support roles. You know,
That's
if you
true.
can't
That's
fight,
true.
if you can't shoot the gun, you reload. If you can't reload, you help the wounded. If you can't help the wounded, you give blood. You know,
Yeah.
wherever I fall on that totem pole, I'm going to stand my ground there. You know, I've learned medical aid. I've gotten to the point where that kid I had to watch die in Detroit, I could save now. You know, that's what
Good.
inspired me to learn medical as good as I have been. I've been making IFACs and giving out free IFACs to people that don't have them who own guns, who are of
Oh hell
like-minded
yeah, that's
mindset.
cool. See, you're
Teaching
already
people
still
how,
doing some direct action there.
yeah, I'm going to hopefully be teaching classes oriented towards libertarians on how to make a proper infantry first aid kit, and how to use it,
Mm-hmm.
how to make a proper bug out bag, what you need to be aware of as far as federal surveillance goes and federal laws to avoid arrest and capture, what how to survive in all kinds of scenarios.
I'd love to
There's a
get
lot of
some clips of
topics
those.
I'd love to teach people
That would be nice to
because
get to share with people. Maybe you can film
yeah,
it.
because right over there I have a fully prepped 2 month bug out bag that has everything I need to go into the woods or even a suburban
Mm-hmm.
area and survive for 2 months with just what's in the bag. Because
Yeah.
thing everyone thinks that you need supplies. No, you need tools and you need knowledge. As long as you have tools and knowledge, you could live for years with no contact with society. And people consistently refuse to pick up those tools or pick up that knowledge and only
Mm-hmm.
focus on firearm training, flat range training. If shit ever hits the fan, sure, you can shoot a gun, but what happens when your best friend gets shot? What happens when you run out of food and water? If you
Mm-hmm.
know what to do,
Speaking of
you're
which,
okay.
Did you learn to grow the potato,
It was a tomato. And I've
or
always
was it
told
a
people I can
tomato?
grow,
Potato,
yeah,
tomato.
I can grow something very genetically close to a tomato.
Close enough. Nice. Well, I want to ask you right now, before we come to a stop, do you have anything else that you'd like to say or any advice that you could give people who are, like newer to the liberty movement or even people who have been going for a while and like are like still trying to figure out how to keep going?
Never give up. What we stand for, what we fight for, is the entire basis of keeping people free. It's the entire thing of throughout mankind's history, there's always been a battle between oppression and the oppressed. We are currently living under a light form of tyranny, but tyranny nonetheless. And at the rate we are going, we will fall to utter despotism. If we cannot find a way to come together, if we cannot find a way to prepare ourselves, then we will watch the people we love suffer. We will watch people we love die. And we will watch the dreams that we kindle in our hearts perish. It is people like you that keep freedom alive. And even if everyone you know turns your back on you, calls you crazy, hold it in your heart that you're doing the right thing. And as long as you stay true to yourself and that belief, you will be unbreakable, unshakable, and you will always be ready to do what's right. And as long as you keep that belief true to yourself, you will always be where you need to be, always be able to do what you need to be able to do. And don't ever let anyone stop you.
Thanks,
And I
man.
suppose
I
the
really.
last thing I
Oh,
would like to say is for a moment of silence for our fallen, for our friends, for the people who are still behind bars, for all those that we've lost in the past few years enduring this. Our brothers and sisters will never be forgotten.
never. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story like this, and I hope that in the future there will be more story to tell. And I just can't begin to wish you enough luck in your future and stuff like that, man. You're a good guy. You've done some good shit, and I hope to see you do more and more and more of it. And obviously, if you ever need anything, you can reach out to us. We'll be there. We know what caliber of person you are. And the rest of y'all, if you want to find him, you can. Is it with an underscore? Yes, you can find him at on X at Tim underscore Teagan, and you guys get down in the links to find him and everything like that. Do you have anything you'd like to plug real quick? Anything cool going on, or like a cool org or anything like that?
Not much at the moment. Most of my energy is put towards the Libertarian Party and trying to get off probation, which hopefully will be next month. After
Good
that,
deal.
if anyone wants to start writing in pardon letters to good old President of the USA on my behalf, keep blowing them up until they say something.
I mean, it's not a bad idea. We've been looking to start some new letter campaigns. Maybe we can help on that. Keep us freaking appraised of all that. And I'm not exactly sure how to write one of those, but like, I'll look into that.
There is
If you know how
a
to write
if you
one,
go
let us know.
online, if you go online and look into it, you have to fill out a proper form and put it to a
So they've got a
special
form for
department.
it.
Yeah, the
Okay.
appeal department, I believe it is.
That's interesting. I'll go look for that and like backwards edit that link into the description too. Um, and until then, like, I mean, thank you guys for staying this long and watching. If you're still here, we really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you like what you see, please share this, get this story out there, like it, leave comments, help us, tip the scales on that nasty ass algorithm. Um, See you guys tomorrow because we'll be interviewing Ford Fisher. And until then, you guys stay mad and keep yourselves free.
Travel out here, that's a shotty. A lot like standing in front of a camera while you're flying Hawaiian. You only get one shot, you know it's gonna blow up in your face, but you go full tilt.